Hello everyone, my name is Roger, a student of the University of Siena, and I participate in three roundtables that talk about how the PSD2 implementation in those countries and the PSD2 affects those national legal framework. The roundtables held by 2020 Eumol Winter School in Siena. The first roundtable was held on 3rd December, we talk about the PSD2 implementation in Croatia, Finland, Estonia. The speaker were Ivana Placi Bokomanovici, director of the Financial and the Supervisory Law Department, Croatian National Bank, Juli Tlama, PhD candidate, University of Helsinki, Nikita Dividenko, PhD candidate, Law Department of the European University Institute in Florence. As the director, Ivana said that the Croatian national legal legislation are not considered to be payment service providers before, so they implement provisions of the PSD2 to exempt credit institutions under the Capital Requirements Directives, and this has been done in Croatia now, and in all markets in the period since implementing PSD1 and PSD2, it has actually shown that there is a need to have small payment institutions. However, they still have the doubts of the account information service and the payment initial service regarding data security and data privacy. And moreover, we could know from the presented by Professor Yuli, due for a geographical reason, Finland's electronic payment is highly developed. The financial markets are quite bank-centric. There are three largest banks, which dominates about 19% of the markets, and this more or less applies to payment service. Also, the amount of cash in circulation is very low, so they implement PSD2 for strong customer authentication. In addition, like Croatia and Finland, Estonia also has a small payment market. There are 13 payment institutions now and only one e-money institution. The first one obtained a license just 1 year ago, and banking service offered by traditional players in the market. Until very recently, people using non-banking payment service providers more and more often. However, the impact of implementation of the PSD2 on the national legal framework in Estonia is not visible. And there has a very interesting question in Estonia that from the data for the second quarter of the 2020 shows that no losses have been having registered by the payment service providers. That means the sector did not have largely affected by the pandemic. And in his opinion, the main reason are the size of the markets is quite small and there are demand in markets. Second roundtable held on 11 December about implementation of PSD2 in Czech Republic and Austria. The speaker were Petr Kotap, PhD, assistant professor, faculty of law, Charis University in Prague, and Martin Mironicki, PhD, research and teaching fellow, Institute of Business Law at the University of Vienna. PSD2 impacted Czech national legal framework evolution rather than the revolution. It brought a lot of legislative work, but the overall impact is not dramatic. And PSD2 transposition into Czech adopted well, and the payment industrial extend by the PS2 from 147 sections to 280 sections now. But Austria, unlike the Czech Republic, there was no comprehensive act before the implementation of this directive. So against this background, there are activities that had a very big impact on the Austrian uh, legal landscape, mainly in the supervision and the authorization of banking service. The most interesting question asked by my colleague that is according an article in 2018 that Czech consumers were in the lead of using digital banking service among the Central and European countries in the Union, but however, at the same time, they were also the least willing to share their account data and digital data with the third-party providers and the non-banking institution. So the question is, after PSD2 generally implemented, does the situation change the recent years in Czech Republic? The professor thought that the two are not contradictory. Modern payment technology has developed rapidly, but users are already familiar with using mobile banking. They do not feel the necessity of aggregating their bank account with some third-party provider. In other words, they do not seem to see so much added value in using the service of those third parties. But in the future, when strong consumer authentication becomes generally spread, they will trust third-party payment institution more. The last roundtable held on 17th of December about PSD2 implementation in Greece, Spain, and the United Kingdom. The speaker was Christos Gritsos, PhD professor of public economic law and law school, National Capodistrian University of Athens; Fernando Zunzagui, PhD assistant professor of financial markets law in Carlos III University of Madrid, and also as an independent lawyer. And the last one is Daniele Davia, PhD teaching fellow, Center for Commercial Law School Studies, and in Queen Mary University of London. The Professor Christo's speech is very vivid and interesting. He exemplified that cross-border transfer in 1980s and 1990s were very complicated and took a lot of time. When the technology developed, payment becomes convenient. And he thought when we want to compare PSD1 and PSD2, annex and considered account information service and payment initial service as the third party's payment service provider are two important points. He also mentioned that exemptions who are exempt from the application of PSD2 may give us some thinking about PSD3, which of those exclusions should anymore not be exclusions but be included in the field of application. And about Spain, the professor Fernando mainly mentioned that Spanish banks have changed the entire structure due to the implementation of PSD2, including the sharing of data between banks and third parties, as well as the supervision of their behavior. And most of the population in Spain declared after the pandemic they prefer to pay through contactless cards. That means we are all in the field of the digitalization. The last one is UK. UK as a special member state of the European Union until next January, although some new payment services have emerged in recent years and have competed with the traditional banks. But the banks are still the dominant credit institution. Whatever the PSD1 or the PSD2 are always a centralized system of regulation for payment service, so they have better supervision and effective restrictions on payment service. And in his opinion, the technical neutrality principle is very important. The most interesting topic is how payment markets will change in UK, and in particular the protection of user rights. The answer by the Professor Daniele was, to be sure the UK was not be a member of the European Union since January 2021, but there are still some trade agreement under negotiation. On the other hand, the UK does not have a very strong sense of consumer protection, but according to the current situation, it should learn from some European regulations and is certain that there will be no change in protecting consumers. And then the professor Fernando supplement this question from other aspects that payment service in general financial markets, but especially in payment service concepts considered in UK are moving from open banking to open finance. Therefore, consistency and mutual cooperation in direction are very important for future development. So in general, the PSD2 is very helpful to payment markets of member states and will continue to be updated and improved in the future. So that's all my presentation. Thank you for watching.